Hi, welcome to the Ithihhasa channel. The last few episodes we spoke about the great Gandharva Angaraparna and his wonderful stories to the Pandavas and their mother Kunti. And finally, as all good things should come to an end, so did this encounter. It was time for the Pandavas and their mother Kunti to carry on. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Nagendra Namaha, Om Amme Narayana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Anjanaya Namaha. Om Kartikaya Namaha, Swami Sharanamayyappo, Om Guruve Namaha. And so, as the time together in the enchanted forest had started to come to an end, as they were leaving, Arjuna and Yudhishthira turned to the Gandharva and asked him, "You had spoken to us earlier about how we need to have a guru to take us forward, to safeguard the wealth and fortunes that we create, and to safeguard our palace, to create yajnas that would increase our strength, and to give us sense and knowledge to be able to maintain it. Pray tell us who, according to you, would be the right guru who we should choose, under whose tutelage we can go forward and even probably one day rule over this entire empire, the great Kuru Empire, and all of Bharat Varsha." And so very tenderly Angaraparna looked at Yudhishthira and said, "You deserve the best guru, the best rishi who will help you. Like in the days of yore, when the great Ikshvaku dynasty, of which Purushottam Rama was one of the great emperors, how the great Saptarishi Vasishtha took care of them, the same way you need a worthy guru to take care of you. For I see in the future you will lead this entire country of Bharat Varsha. As the head of the Kuru Empire, you deserve a guru of your standing and your level. Right in this vana, not too far away, is the shrine of Utkochaka. There you will meet the great Rishi Dhaumya, who is currently doing penance and tapasya there. He is the younger brother of Devala Muni. Now, instantly, Devala Muni was a great rishi of yore, of the ancient times, whose great research and yajnas and sadhana was well known all over Bharat Varsha. Devala Muni was one of the rishis who had done research on how to purify yourself after having come into contact with certain unwanted elements and certain foreign customs. He was also a master of the Sarpa Shastra and the Sarpa Yajnas, to rid the body and the mind and our karma of the ill effects of Sarpa Dosha. And Dhaumya was his younger brother. And so Angaraparna told the Pandavas to go forth and meet Dhaumya Muni. And he would be the right one, the knower of the Vedas, the knower of the Shastras, the knower of the Angas of the Vedas, who would be the right person to guide the Pandavas, especially Yudhishthira when he takes over the rulership of the land. He would be the right one for the Pandavas. And so, taking leave from Angaraparna, after having taught Angaraparna the Agnyastra, the secret of the Agnyastra, and requesting Angaraparna to hold on to the horses for now, and that he would call on Angaraparna when he needed the horses in the future, the Pandavas and their mother bid farewell to Angaraparna and his wives, and then went on their way towards Kochaka in search of their rishi, Dhaumya. Shortly they reached Kochaka, where they noticed that the great Dhaumya was in intense penance in front of the shrine, and all of them prostrated themselves at his feet and lay in wait for him to open his eyes. Within a short time, this great Rishi Dhaumya opened his eyes, smiled at the people in front of him, and asked them to rise. He then asked them who they were. He said, "You've dressed like Brahmanas, but you don't seem to be Brahmanas. Pray tell me who you are." And with a smile, Yudhishthira told him that they were the Pandavas and their mother Kunti. Yudhishthira told Dhaumya about how they had escaped from the burning house of lack and made their way through the enchanted forest, where they met Angaraparna, who then recommended that he should be the guru for the Pandavas. And having said this, He sat at the feet of Dhaumya and said, "Would you please take us as your disciples? Would you be our Kulaguru? Would you be the Guru who takes us forward over the next few years of our life?" And Dhaumya smiled at them. He closed his eyes. He was a thin, tall man, a gaunt frame, long beard, a very pleasant face, and very intelligent, deep eyes. He got up, gathered some fruits, beautiful, succulent roots, cooked up a small meal for the Pandavas, laid it down for them, and they sat in his presence and ate. And as they ate their meal, a feeling of calm came over the Pandavas. They knew that this man, this great rishi in front of them, would be the man who would take them to success, who would take them to fame, who would take them to fortune. And then, with a peaceful smile, Dhaumya looked at them and said, "Yes, I accept your position, I accept your offer, and I will be your Kulguru." And as he said these words, a sense of elation came in Dhaumya also. He could feel that these Yajamanas sitting in front of him, though his spiritual disciples sitting in front of them, were meant for greatness, extreme greatness. He realized that there will be a war coming in the future, and in this war, these young men in front of him will achieve greatness. They'll be victorious and they will rule the land, and he felt that he rightfully needed to take them to this success, to take them to greatness. And as he said yes, sitting in front of him, the Pandavas felt an elation. They felt that the war was already won. They felt that Draupadi was already their wife. Each one of them felt that Draupadi would be his wife. And they knew that the great kingdom of Hastinapur would be theirs. And then they fell back at his feet and said, "If you would give permission, if you would grant permission, we would like you to accompany us." And he asked them, "Where are you headed now?" And with a blush on their face and a glint in their eye, they said, "We are headed for the kingdom of Panchala, to the capital city, Kampila." And he nodded and said, "Yes. The daughter of Yajnasena, Drupada, is due for marriage, and it's her swayamvara that is being conducted in the kingdom of Kampila. And I'm sure you are the worthy people who can take her hand in marriage. It is but right that one of you marry her. Let me gather my meager belongings, and I shall accompany you. And I shall be there with you henceforth, guiding you in the right path, guiding you in the path of dharma, that you may not stray, guiding you that you may not harm and hurt the gods and the devas, and you may not incur their curses or their disregard. Let me accompany you." And within a short time, this great austere Rishi Dhaumya gathered up his belongings, and then they started heading towards the city of Kampila. On the way, they met a lot of other Brahmanas who seemed to be headed in the same direction. And those Brahmanas asked them, "Pray tell us where you come from." And Yudhishthira said, "We are Brahmanas who are coming from the city of Ekachakra, the town of Ekachakra." And these other Brahmanas said, "Then you must accompany us to the kingdom of Kampila, to the kingdom of Panchala. For it is said that there's a great swayamvara being conducted there." And as the Pandavas with their Rishi Dhaumya started to walk towards the city of Kampila, the other Brahmanas started to tell the Pandavas the stories of Panchala. They mentioned that the great Yajnasena Drupada had got a daughter, Draupadi, and a son, Dhrishtadyumna. Of course, the traveling mendicant had already told the story to the Pandavas, but these other Brahmanas brought in new insights into that story. They told about how this great Draupadi, who got her name from her father Drupada, was also called Yajnaseni. Incidentally, her father Drupada's name was Yajnasena. They told about how Draupadi, who was also called Yajnaseni, for she came out of the tumultuous fires of a yajna conducted by Yaja and Upayaja. And as the Pandavas with Dhaumya walked towards the city of Kampila with the Brahmanas, they started to describe the beauty of Draupadi, a dark woman of unimaginable beauty, unearthly divine beauty. It was said that a scent emanated from her, a scent of wild blue lotuses that spread for a yojana around her. Her eyes were like the petals of the lotus, and her thin, slender waist and deep bosom made any man who looked at her faint. Her tall, slim figure was one of extreme beauty, and it was said that no man could handle her beauty, and it had to be one of the greatest men in all of Bharatvarsha who could handle her beauty. Her father Drupada had always harbored the thought in his mind that only the greatest archer of all the land would marry her, and there was only one who was equal to be able to marry her, and that was Arjuna, the great Pandava. And it was to marry him that he had insisted that the great Yaja and Upayaja conduct the Putra Kama Yajna to give him a daughter who would marry Arjuna. But after the death of Arjuna and the Pandavas in the great house of Lak, Drupada had gone into a state of depression, extreme depression. For he knew the one man who would be worthy of his wonderful, beautiful daughter was no longer there. Somewhere deep in his heart, he was hoping that he would be alive. And if he were alive, he should come forth and marry her. And it was for this that he had conducted a great swayamvara. Now, swayamvaras are of two types. One in which the great kings and princes of the land are invited, and the princess who's supposed to marry would go around looking at each one of them while their greatness was being spoken about. And at this time, the princess would take a round around the swayamvara venue, looking at each one of those kings, and then would decide for herself who should be worthy enough to marry her, based on his looks, based on the auspicious markings on his body, and based on his pedigree and the greatness that was extolled about him. And the other swayamvara would be where a test would be conducted. A test would be conducted which would determine who would be the best suitor for a great princess. And it was this latter type of swayamvara which Drupada had set up. Drupada, it seems, had set up a swayamvara, and in this swayamvara he had organized a yantra or a mechanism, something that would only be tackled by the great Arjuna. And so deep down in his heart, it was well known that Drupada hoped that the Pandavas and Arjuna had not perished in that fire, and that the Pandavas and Arjuna would miraculously come from somewhere, from some corner of Bharatvarsha, and take over the hand of his beautiful daughter. And for that, he had kept a yantra ready. And then looking at the Pandavas, the Brahmanas said, this swayamvara is open to everyone, not just the Kshatriyas of the land. This swayamvara is open to the Brahmanas, to the Devas, to the Gandharvas, and anybody who would like to take this great Draupadi's hand in marriage. Why, look at you all. You all yourselves look like Devas. You all hardly look like Brahmanas. And this dark one here, this tall, dark, handsome Brahmana, he looks like he's come down from Devaloka himself. Maybe he should try for the hand of this great Draupadi. And the Pandavas gave a very stifled laugh, for they knew that they were the Pandavas that Drupada wanted to be part of the Panchala army and Panchala kingdom, the Panchala family. And then they started to talk about Draupadi's elder brother, Dhrishtadyumna. And it was said that when Dhrishtadyumna had come out from the sacrificial fire, a voice in the sky had announced that this great man who had come out from the fire, who had come out from the yajna, this man who bore divine ornaments and a divine bow and arrows, would one day be the end of Dronacharya. And this news spread like wildfire. This news spread like wildfire all over Bharatvarsha and reached the ears of Drona. Drona, who at one time was selfish in his teaching of the art of war, who wanted to teach only Ashwathama, his son, and devised every means possible to keep Arjuna and the others away. That great Guru had once had a dream that he will fight in a war at the crack of the ages, a dharma yuddha between dharma and adharma. And unfortunately, he would fight on the side of adharma. And that would not go down well with his conscience. The day he realized that he would fight on the side of adharma and that the Pandavas, Arjuna being one of them, would fight on the side of dharma, he knew that there was only one man in all of Bharatvarsha who could conquer him, and that was Arjuna. And from that day on, he taught Arjuna everything he knew. And the day he realized and the day he heard that this great warrior Dhrishtadyumna is destined to be the end of Dronacharya, rather than being exasperated, rather than being anxious, rather than being troubled, a sense of calm came on to him. For he knew that in the destiny where he would fight on the side of Adharma, he knew that his only means of reaching absolution, his only means of reaching moksha, would be to die in that war and to be killed in that war. And so he let it be known that he was willing to teach Dhrishtadyumna the art of war. And when this knowledge reached Drupada, he was shocked. Why would his arch enemy, for whom he has had a son and a daughter, want to teach his own son? He grew suspicious initially whether this was a ploy to maybe kill his son prematurely. But then over time, he realized that this great Dronacharya was doing repentance for having, at one day, having to fight on the side of Adharma. And Drupada, feeling a sense of elation, sent his son Dhrishtadyumna to the ashram of Dronacharya, where kings and princes from all over the land were still coming to train, even after the Kauravas and Pandavas had finished their training. And Drupada sent Dhrishtadyumna to this ashram of Drona. And there Dronacharya, the greatest teacher of all the land, the teacher whose name still resonates as the greatest teacher 5,000 to 7,000 years down the line, in whose name in Bharatvarsha there is an award called the Dronacharya Award for the greatest teacher of the land. This great teacher Dronacharya taught his student Dhrishtadyumna everything that he knew, every strategy that he knew. For one day when the great armies were arrayed in the great war of Kurukshetra, Duryodhana walks up to Dronacharya and tells him, "Look there far yonder, O great Mahatma, O great Guru. There arranged on the other side lie the armies of the Pandavas. And who has arranged them? But your pupil Dhrishtadyumna," with sarcasm and anger in his voice. And thence on began the training of Dhrishtadyumna under the eagle eye of Dronacharya, who taught Dhrishtadyumna also every means possible to bring about the death of Dronacharya. That selfish guru had transformed from a selfless guru who was willing to teach people the ways and means to kill him for the sake of moksha. And this is why gurus are regarded in our land with extreme reverence. Our teachers are treated with extreme reverence, for they come from the breed of the great gurus of the past from 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. No, from 14 to 20,000 years ago, where they would teach their students everything selflessly, impartially, without thinking about the consequences, knowing fully well that the Guru's dharma is to teach, and only in teaching in this manner will they reach moksha. And so the Brahmanas were telling the story of how Dhrishtadyumna had undergone a few years of training with the great Guru Dronacharya, who taught him everything he knew. And today Dhrishtadyumna was heading the swayamvara to give the hand of his sister in marriage to the greatest suitor of the land. Privately, they were hoping it was Arjuna, but they knew that Arjuna had died in the fire of the house of Lag. And they were hoping that the next person who would come would be just as capable, if it was so possible. And then the Brahmanas told them of the arrangements that were made in the city of Kampila and this kingdom of Panchala for the swayamvara. It was said that bards and soothers, storytellers, gymnasts, and various other rishis and munis from all of Bharatvarsha had come to the city of Kampila. Entertainers from everywhere had come to the city of Kampila. And it was said that Kshatriyas from every part of the land had come to vie for the hand of Draupadi. Kshatriyas of all ages, from those who had just crossed puberty to those who were 100 years old. They had all come to Kampila to vie for the hand of this greatest beauty of all of Bharatvarsha, Draupadi. And with the intention of impressing Draupadi, they had brought immense wealth which they would distribute to the rishis, to the mendicants, and to all the people around, to the citizenry of Kampila, so that they could catch the notice of Draupadi as being a large-hearted prince, or large-hearted king, or large-hearted Kshatriya. And that would make Draupadi select them. And so it was well known that the rishis and munis and the Brahmanas from all over the land had flocked to Kampila. And they said, we shall make a lot of money here from the largest given by these kings, and then we shall go back. Come, let us walk together, and we know that we shall come back rich from this great land of the swayamvara. And so as they walked through enchanted forests, the Pandavas, Dhaumya, and the Brahmanas slowly took in the beautiful sights of the forests. The wonderful swans, the wonderful birds, exotic lakes, beautiful enchanted trees that were there on the way. And as they reached the border of this kingdom of Panchala, they could start to see the festivities. It took but half a day for them to cross over from the border of Panchala to the city of Kampila. And everything that the Brahmanas said describing the city was absolutely true. And there, the Pandavas, with Dhaumya at their head, entered the city of their destiny, entered the city of their future, where they would meet their bride, where they would earn their bride, the city of Kampila. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Nagendra Namaha, Om Amme Narayana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Anjaneyaya Namaha, Om Kartikaya Namaha, Om Narayana Namo, Swami Sharanamayyappo, Om Gurave Namaha.